Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Josh.
and this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 52.
Now, 52 is an important number for us, Ben, because for some reason we got on a very strange rotation. And 52 marks the end of our second season.
Yeah,
We did
awesome.
it. Woo!
That's the number of weeks in a year, but I guess if you're only doing it every other week, it's the number of episodes in 2 years. So congratulations on our 2-year anniversary.
That's where the math comes from, and it all works out now. So, Ben, you and me, buddy, 52 episodes, 2 seasons, a total runtime of 98 hours and 2 minutes.
Holy crap.
Not including
That's
this
a lot
episode.
of content.
Yeah, we're going to break 100 hours with this episode, theoretically.
Excellent.
Now, what's weird about this is I started thinking about the things that we have outlasted that we have absolutely no right to outlast.
Things way better than us that didn't last this long.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if it's through tenacity or the fact that we have a very low budget production here. But the first one that came to my mind was Firefly. Have you seen the show Firefly?
Oh, I love it.
One season.
It's
Fox,
worth all the controversy of having ended too soon.
yeah, Fox was terrible. It was before its time. Sci-fi western. It was wonderful. It had all the tropes that you wanted and all the stupid gags that you didn't know you needed in your life.
Yeah, great characters, clever dialogue, interesting tropes, just everything.
Well, the total, all of Firefly is only 10 hours, 16 minutes of shows, and then 1 hour and 59 minutes of movie.
Okay, yeah.
And that's
yeah.
it. We're way longer
Well
than that.
below the Bad at Magic podcast. Get it
Yeah, I know.
together.
Here's another thing we have no right being bigger than.
Uh-huh.
The entire MCU.
The entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, wrap your brain around that. 53 hours of movies and 18-ish hours of shows.
Not if you include all the, TV series.
I didn't go back and find all
We'll
the
have
TV
to add
series.
those numbers in, and that'll be our next milestone.
If we beat all the Marvel TV series.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of them are awful. The last one, and this is a callback to our previous episode where we read The Hobbit. I was looking for book series that we were longer than, and unfortunately, Harry Potter is just too long. We'll probably reach Harry Potter in a couple more seasons, but
Okay.
we are longer than The Lord of the Rings, all of the audiobooks, including The Hobbit. All of those books together are only 64 hours and 34 minutes.
All right.
So we are bigger and therefore better than the MCU, the show Firefly, and all of Tolkien fantasy.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, Bad at Magic. Bigger, therefore better. We are open to sponsorship opportunities. Please give us a call.
Yeah, we've got a new fundraising goal.
Oh, we have the new fundraising goal. So this is the Halcyon Star Cruiser that we talked about a few episodes back that Disney is putting out. And so there's articles that are now trickling out that are showing what it's going to be like and how awesome it is.
Yeah. It's
And
$1,200 a night per person, and you have to stay for 2 nights. So it starts at $4,800 for a couple people.
This is a moment in my life where I'm just looking at Disney and just shut up and take my money.
I'm like, okay, I can do that.
We need to put this link in the show notes to the picture of the room that you stay in, and it looks so Star Warsy. Like I made that E sound like a little schoolgirl when I saw it. Like, yee!
Okay, I wasn't being facetious when I said this is a fundraising goal for the Bad at Magic podcast. So, folks, if you've been waiting to sponsor the show and you're interested in hearing, an episode recorded from the Halcyon Star Cruiser, where we help you live vicariously through us, Star Wars IRL, come sponsor the podcast so that Josh and I can raise $4,800 and go for a flight.
Because the only way that we're going to be able to justify this to our spouses is if it's bought and paid for by somebody else.
Right.
Now, I'll up the ante, and I will say this: it's not going to be one episode, sir. No. It's not going to. It's not going to be 2 episodes. I will record an episode.
A series.
We will record an episode the night before, the first night, the second night, and the night after, because there's no way we could capture it all with just one episode.
I think you're right. When we reach this goal, it will be an event.
Yeah, it'll be so great, and we'll take you along with us, listeners. We will.
All right. Well, is that it about the number 52?
One last piece of news about 52 that is very important. Ben, I've been holding this news back from you all week, and I've been so excited to tell you, we've been picked up for season 3.
Fantastic.
We have another 26 episodes on the docket.
Our contract's been renewed. All right. Well, it's time for some follow-up. So last time, like you said, we reviewed The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, except that we didn't actually review it. So we just need to do a real brief kind of catch-up on a few things. We got to the end of time, and I got short-sighted, and we didn't do the usual things. I need to make 2 corrections. One, I was talking about C.S. Lewis, and I said he wrote Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I know he didn't write that. I meant to say The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I don't know why those 2 things got swapped in my brain, but they did. And the other thing is I mentioned the length of time between when J.R.R. Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and when he published The Lord of the Rings was 17 years, and I said 13 a couple of times. Anyway, that out of the way, let's do the Bad at Magic rating system on The Hobbit.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about if it's hard or soft magic, and then if it conforms to the Sandersonian 3 laws of magic.
Yes.
And that is limitations are more interesting than the capabilities.
That it's consistent with the rules that it teaches you?
Yes, it teaches you the rules and is consistent with that. And work on what you have instead of adding something new.
Yes.
Or I think these are because there's also the how well does the person... Oh, no, it's how well does the reader understand the magic system.
Right.
And then how well do you resolve the plot with the magic system.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't even remember the rules that we're supposed to be using for this. All right, so hard or soft magic. This is clearly soft magic.
Yeah, very soft magic.
Gandalf shows up and just does whatever he wants.
Right. No one knows the rules, how powerful it is, what the limitations are. But this is a good example of soft magic used well.
It's in that it's not overused.
Right.
It's just this kind of general feeling that there is magic around, and it can be big or it can be little, but we don't have any clear understanding of how much any one person has at any given time. So the stakes aren't really involved when it comes to the magic system.
There are some things about the magic system that are very bounded. For instance, the weapons, like Sting. You know, it glows blue when there's an Ord coming. Does it do anything really special? Not really. It glows brighter blue in certain circumstances than others, but you kind of know what it does. How did it get that way? Soft magic.
Because the person who made it really hated the people that Sting was supposed to kill. That's kind of the explanation we got.
Yeah.
But no, that's a good point. But like I'm saying, yeah, totally soft magic. It just kind of exists there, and it doesn't intrude on the experience at all.
Okay, I had one rant I totally intended to do last time that I didn't, and I got to do it now.
Okay.
Dragons. Specifically Smaug.
Okay.
I guess we're just supposed to suspend our disbelief of the entire package of dragons because we're just given it and it like fits into our imagination and we just accept it. But a dragon is like this massive beast with nigh impenetrable armor and in virtually unlimited supply of I don't know what's
time and intelligence.
No, not that.
Resources.
The chemical they used to drop on the jungles of Vietnam.
Napalm.
You know, a virtually unlimited supply of napalm. It can fly at will and deftly, and it's so fantastical compared to anything else. You know, there's all kinds of limitations in this system. Everybody, you know, you can be a good shot with an arrow, but it's still just an arrow. You have a sword, and the wizard can do a few spells. But all of the things surrounding dragon just feels like it's a whole order of magnitude greater than any of that.
Now, you see, I had a harder time believing giant spiders that could talk than I did with the dragon. Because, like, insects break the cube squared law. Like, insects can't be that big. They can't. Like, physically, their bodies would fall apart, and they would die of, like, hypothermia because they're not designed to be this big.
Yeah, well, if giant spiders break the cube square law, so do dragons.
Well, he's getting rid of all his excess heat by breathing the fire, Ben. Like that's just physics.
How can it burn down an entire town? It took like 40 B-24s to firebomb Tokyo.
So, all right. So, but I mean, it's dragons. Like, this was the pinnacle. This is the apex predator. There is a dragon in all of the Lord of the Rings series that we are aware of.
It's supposed to have like these scales that are so tough they can't be pierced by arrows and swords, which means it's really heavy and it's really big.
He's hundreds of years old. He's very intelligent and super cranky. And all he wants to do is sleep on his giant pile of money And then these freaking dwarves show up that have no business even trying to kill him.
And disrupt his nap.
And like they were so low level, the DM had to say that the dragon flew off and died somewhere.
Yeah, he flew off and had a tantrum on. He took it out on somebody else.
Oh, I am so upset about these dwarves. I'm gonna go burn down the town next door.
So, slash end rant. I'm done ranting about dragons. I just had to get that out of my system. So, related to Sanderson's laws, I would say Tolkien follows all three of them.
It's consistently inconsistent. The only thing that we know about magic really is that Gandalf has all of it, and every time Gandalf shows up, everything goes the way he intends it to. So, sure, I guess that works within the boundaries. As far as resolving the problems, if we're looking at just the Hobbit, yes, the magic system doesn't break any of the problems. The magic system doesn't really resolve any of the problems. It's the random Deus Ex Machinas that solve all the problems for our idiot dwarves. So that's a storytelling mechanic, not really a magic system thing.
So you're being a bit more reluctant than I am to give this one full marks. We've been giving them letter grades. So we'll say soft magic, I'll give it a B.
Soft magic, I'm going to give it a C. Just because, like, this feels like the first couple drafts of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay. All right. I think that wraps that up.
Well, I'm glad that we're 10 minutes into this episode. We just finished wrapping up the last one.
So there's a thing that happens sometimes on this podcast where you and I, in the course of our conversation, I'll tell you something about my wife, Alicia, and you'll be like, hold on there, Ben, as your friend and looking out for you. Are you sure you want to say this in public and on a recording about your wife? And I'll plunge on heedless of your warning. Generally, that's because my wife's just unique in her own ways, and I know when I'm really trying her. And most of the time, I say those things, she hears them on the podcast. Maybe she'll bring it up, maybe she won't at all. And it's not, I think your Alicia simulator's a bit out of calibration. However, last time I did something on the podcast that was off the charts bad.
Oh no, unforgivable.
So
bad you are being called to the carpet to apologize publicly.
Yeah, so I'm here to give a half-hearted, backhanded apology on the show, officially in recording, because hell hath no fury like an English major whose opinions on British literature have been misrepresented on a podcast.
Liberal arts majors around the world unite!
I can't even remember what it was that got wrong. I got something wrong about my wife's opinion about The Hobbit, and I'm sorry.
As a private note from me, Josh, to all you liberal arts majors out there, I don't care. Like, at me all you want with your opinions on British literature. Like, old-timey British authors were paid literally by the word. The more they wrote, the more they got paid. That's why they are so verbose. Not because they had some intricate story to tell, but because they were trying to make them dollar bills.
Yeah, and I think the debate that we were having about, do we have a right to sit around and try to figure out what the author intended versus what they didn't, or should we just take their story at face value, is an old debate. The nature of criticism in literature.
Oh, definitely. I just want to read the story, and if I like the story, then great. If there's a deeper meaning to it that he intended, I don't care.
Yeah. Now, people might think, if they're listening to the podcast and following the things that happen, that I am copying your life because this week 2 things happened in my life that you've done recently. So I am upgrading the cooler in my computer.
Nice.
And I had to get a new car.
Well, I mean, yes, you are a copycat, but that's okay. I'm going to say imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Well, I'm going to say that this is just coincidence, but whatever. My son came back from South America, and so we have 4 drivers in the house and only 2 cars. And, he's got a position at a charity down in Shreveport that he needs to get to. And my daughter's got to get to work. My wife's got to get to work, and I've got to get to work. And we got to get the kids back and forth to school. And 2 cars just aren't going to cut it. So I had to get another car. So I did some research, found a car, had a great experience, which is weird because I never have great car buying experiences, and got a 2005 Toyota Tundra pickup with the extended cab.
Oh, a pickup truck. No, I mean, you are
Yeah.
in the South now, so that is kind of required. It's almost like camouflage. People will
Yeah.
take you at face value now.
I bought it from Texas. It came with a free pair of cowboy boots.
Oh, nice. Was there a gun in the glove box?
No, but there's a shotgun rack in the back window.
Excellent. I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah. So I got a new truck. I'm getting my computer fixed in a way different way than you are doing it, but nonetheless, our lives are kind of synchronized in those respects.
That's funny. Well, I'm glad that you got a truck after I got rid of mine. And I'm also glad that you're getting an upgrade to your computer because it sorely needs it.
So what have you been up to?
Well, nothing. It's summertime in Arizona, Ben, and so it's 109 degrees outside by 9 a.m. And so I just don't even want to do anything. So finally, my wife and I got so sick of it, we decided, you know what? Let's go someplace where it isn't quite so hot. And we took the kids, and we were going to take a quick weekend trip up to Flagstaff, which is in northern Arizona. The elevation is much higher, so theoretically it's supposed to be cooler there. And we had this whole thing planned out. And it was going to be just a fun couple of days. We're going to do some outdoor adventure-y type stuff and come back. And it was going to be a quick trip and everything was going to be great. And the tagline of this trip was like the Fleshman family trip to Flagstaff, : how everything went wrong at every turn.
Murphy's Law personified.
It was, oh, geez. All right, so step one, not even step one, step zero. We are packing for this trip. And Nicole has been mentally packing for weeks. Like when we first met, she would pack bags a week in advance of a trip, and I've whittled her down so she now packs like a day or two before at most.
Wow.
And I don't know. I guess I was just
and people say no one changes in a marriage. That's a huge change.
That's a percentage wise, that's enormous, but it's ridiculous. You can't have a suitcase for a week, ladies. That's not a thing. Anyway, I don't know. In my brain, I guess I just kind of expected one of two things was going to happen. Either one, she was going to pack all my clothes for me, or two, I would just do what I've done my entire life and just take 6 seconds and throw all my stuff in a suitcase.
Did you drive 4 hours from home and forget like a change of underwear?
Oh, no. All right, so change of you can't that's not no. If you have spent any time packing, everybody knows that you pack like all the shirts that you need plus one, all the shorts you need plus one, and then all the underwear you need, and then double it. Because for some reason everyone thinks you're going to need way more underwear on trips than you actually ever end up needing.
You have formulas for your overpacking. Alicia just does it by feeling. Do I have enough underwear? It just feels like I don't. I'm like, you could count it.
Well, here was my problem. Is there was a couple of key things that I did not pack that everyone else got packed because my wife was in charge of packing for them. For example, a waterproof jacket. Like I brought like a long sleeve shirt or like a sweater.
Raincoat.
Yeah, I did not bring a raincoat. I brought like a sweater. But it turned out the raincoat would have been very, very important. And then I didn't bring a second pair of shoes. Like I figured I have a pair of shoes. This is the only pair of shoes that I will need.
Okay, it feels like there's a bias happening here, and I want to ask about it. If it wouldn't have rained on your trip, would you have noticed that you forgot to pack a raincoat?
Nope. Or the shoes thing. Like both of that was because the weather,
that's like a confirmation bias, that like because something went wrong, you noticed you didn't do it. It could have been anything that you needed that you didn't have.
Well, my fault. It's my fault because I was packing. She goes, "Did you get a jacket?" I'm like, "No, it's in the closet." And then I keep packing. And then at some point I left and I came back and I looked in the bag and I mistook. My raincoat is khaki colored and I mistook another khaki thing in the bag for, she must have gotten my raincoat. And didn't confirm or verify.
You counted the neighbor's kid, and then you got on the plane for Paris while your 9-year-old was still in the attic.
Yes, that's what I did. Except it was a jacket, not a child, because I'm not a monster. Anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal, really. We drove up to Flagstaff, had some outdoorsy, adventure-y type stuff. One of the things that we had paid for in advance was weathered out, because we went up to like the ski slope, and we were going to ride the gondola to the summit. But there was lightning, and so we couldn't do that. So it was we got refunded.
Okay. Cancellation number one.
That's cancellation number one. The second day we were going to spend the entire day fishing. We got out there early, and I did the dad thing where the kids got to the beach and started playing and having fun by the lake, and I spent an hour hauling things from the car and unpacking and setting up like our shade tent and our chairs and our cooler and our tackle boxes and our fishing poles. Like, okay, everybody's ready to fish. And then my parents showed up and we fished for 10 minutes. And then it like a full up monsoon started rolling in and surrounding us. And it went from like sunny and like little breezy to pouring rain in the span of about 15 minutes.
Oh my.
And it was funny because at one point my dad was fishing with my son, and he turned around and says, "Hey, maybe we should start packing up." And I was already on the way to the car with as much crap as I could carry, trying to defend it all from the weather.
You saw the clouds coming.
Yes, but it still hit us. Like we threw, it was ridiculous. It poured rain for so long that everybody's shoes got completely muddy. And when I say muddy like that, mud that's like an inch thick all the way around your shoes. And we had to tear down the shade and the chairs and just throw them on the ground to make sure they didn't blow away, and then run for our vehicles because the lightning was so bad. And we had lunch in the cars. It rained for, I don't even, like 20, 30 minutes. And then it cleared up a little bit. We're like, oh, maybe this will be fine. And we go down and I start setting things back up again. And then we realize, no, this is just the eye of the storm. Here it comes again. And then we start tearing everything back down, and we just called it after that.
I think I called you during the time you were sitting in the car waiting for the rain to stop.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I forget. I had some personal emergency, and I called you, and I'm like, by the way, what are you up to? And he's like, we're sitting in the car waiting for the rain to stop so we can go fishing again.
So my intent was to spend the entire day relaxing, sitting on a pebbly beach, like fishing for trout that weren't ever going to bite, so I could just sit there all day. And I spent the entire time doing the dad thing of making sure that we didn't lose anybody to massive flooding or lightning.
Okay, so cancellation number 2.
It's cancellation number 2. The one thing that went right that was terrifying was we went to this cave. We read online about this lava tube cave, and we got directions to it.
Okay, I've done those before.
Well, what I didn't realize is I was expecting something a little more formal, but no, it's just...
You're just out in the middle of the desert, and there's a hole in the ground.
It's Flagstaff, so it's like trees, so it's like a forest. But yeah, it was. We went down 2 fire roads, and then we parked in the middle of nowhere, and there's just a hole in the ground. And it wasn't even a big hole in the ground. I got pictures of it like, oh, what is this stinky little thing? And we had to like crawl in, and then it opened up into this tunnel. And there was a little placard at the beginning with a map of how long it was. And it's 3/4 of a mile. It was a lava tube underground of varying ceiling heights. So it went everything from, 40 feet tall to 3 feet tall.
Oh, geez.
Which my family was fine with, but as dad hauling all the water and the extra gear and things, like, and also the biggest person, I'm like shimmying on my stomach. My wife has choice pictures of me in very uncomfortable positions, trying not to lose my mind because, like, I'm like as the wall is the ceiling's pressing my head and the ground is pressing my stomach, trying not to think about the thousands of tons of earth that are suspended over my head, supported by nothing.
Yeah, you've documented in the past on this podcast that you're already uncomfortable in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, I'm a big guy. I don't like being closed in. And I was just like a little nervous. Like there was that little voice in my head like, we are underground. There are no park rangers. Nobody comes in here to check this stuff. If there's a cave in, you're all going to die here. And I was like, shut up, you. We're having a family trip and it's fun. The kids are having a good time. Stop panicking. All right, but here's somehow in my head, looking at the placard at the beginning, it showed that it was a 3/4 mile tunnel. And I got in my head that it was a tunnel, that at the other end, it was going to go back to the surface and we could crawl out and hike a path back to our car. And just by the way I'm phrasing this, you can kind of tell where this is going.
You got to a dead end and it dawned on you that you had to go back the way you came.
It took us an hour to haul our children through this pitch black underground cave that is just all lava rocks that are spiky as all.
Are your flashlights starting to dim?
No, our flashlights were good. We made sure we had decent flashlights for this trip, so that was okay.
Okay, but one thing about this is these lava tubes are kind of unidirectional. Like they're not catacombs. It's just a tube.
No, there was no possibility of getting lost, but there was many possibilities of twisting an ankle, breaking your leg, falling into a 4-foot crevice that you can't see, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but all that aside, like it was both my wife and I. We got to the end of this too because we felt it got to the point where it was like dragging the children through these spiky, rocky cave.
Like they were tired of walking and climbing.
Well, my son was fine. He was pressing on ahead as far as we would let him. But my daughter was, she's almost 7, so she's a small, tiny person anyway, and she's just
Does she still ask you to carry
at her own pace. A couple of times I did pick her up and throw her over like the big dips or whatever, but it's just it's sweetie, you need to pick up the pace because I don't want to be here for the rest of my life. Please move faster.
So is this a W or an L? the trip in the caves?
The trip in the caves was, well, it was a W, but like we got out of that cave and we're like, wasn't that fun, kids? And my wife and I had that moment where we locked eyes and had that whole conversation of, we are never doing anything like this ever again.
It was a win, but you're not doing it again.
Yeah. I have to say this, as the dad, I had a great opportunity and I seized it. We got to a part in the cave where it was like kind of echoey because it was really big in this part. And I was like, oh, hey, everybody, let's take a break and stop for a second. And then we stopped and I go, okay, this is going to be really cool. Everybody turn off your flashlights to just see how dark it is. And then we all turned our flashlights off. And you do that. And if you've ever been in a cave and you turn off all the lights, like there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like
it's
you
so
can't
dark your eyes don't even adjust.
Yes, like you put your hand an inch in front of your face and you can't see it. But in that moment where it was pitch black and perfectly silent as everybody's taking in just the oppressiveness of the situation, I farted so loud that it echoed.
Everyone pay attention to me for just a second. I have something important to say. Okay, so we're calling that one a qualified win. So you got 2 fails and a win. What else was on the trip?
The other win that kind of evens everything out is the day that we were going to spend fishing, we had to come up with something on the fly. Like we went back to our little Airbnb.
Oh no, you didn't have it all planned out in advance?
Oh, we did not have a weather down idea for what to do next. So my wife and I are frantically Googling on the phones while the kids are in the shower, getting all the mud off of them. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I was able to find a laser tag place that was 10 minutes from where we were staying that was thankfully open. And we went, and there was a birthday party going on there, and they let us jump in with them to do laser tag for a couple of games, and awesome. that was a qualified win. The kids had a blast doing laser tag.
Classic. That's a classic, like Amelia Bedelia scenario. You try to do the things you plan, they all go wrong, and you save the day with some improv thing at the end.
And the little extra, just the whipped cream on top of the laser tag story. I not only did I win the laser tag tournament that we were in, Ben, I dominated. Like I had more points than the next 2 people on my team combined.
You were like that episode of How I Met Your Mother?
Yes, I was Barney running through.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Holding up the 9-year-old as a body shield. Yeah, no, I was supposed to stay with my daughter. That didn't happen because I got way too into it, like destroying these 12 and 13-year-old kids at this birthday party.
Awesome. I can totally imagine that.
I'm a good father, I swear.
I've got a something we're going to do that I'm going to turn into a mini segment on the podcast. So when we moved in, as you do when you move into a new house, you have all your stuff that was stored one way in the old house, and it can't go in the new house the same way because it's a different house. So we have our whole collection of like board games, and we're trying to fit them all in, and we're like, do we really need this many board games? And
yes.
Well, yeah, I knew you would say that. So I had my daughter make a list of all of our board games. And now what we're doing is we're going to be systematically trying all of them. And it's going to be like board game Hunger Games.
Board game Survivor.
Yes.
So it's like if you don't make the cut, you are going to the shredder.
Exactly. So what I'll do on the podcast starting from this time going forward until we're done with all of them is every episode, I'll just bring out a couple of games that we played together as a family that week and give a report on them.
Okay. So what are the games you played this weekend?
We only got one in this week. It's a game called Codenames. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I have not played it.
The theme is, the hook is you're like a Cold War era spy battling another Cold War era spy, and you're out in public and you're interacting with people and you're trying to pass. I don't even know what you're trying to do. You're just trying to be spy-y by passing code words. So what you do is you lay out 25 cards in a 5x5 grid, and they have words on them. And the words correspond to a secret grid that's the same, that represent good spies, bad spies, random bystanders, and an assassin.
Okay.
And what you have to do is, as the spy master, you have to give a one-word clue and a number to all of your spies that represent one of these cards in the 5x5 grid or more. Like you could say, let's say, for instance, you'd said pasta 3, and maybe you wanted them to get the word sauce, the word red, and the word onion.
Okay. So you have to give them a number of the words that you want them to pick up from these code words, and you have to give them a clue that ties those number of words together.
Yes. the danger of it is if there are other words that are similar, you could inadvertently give them a clue that makes them pick the wrong one, and that will either advance the other team's goal or potentially get the assassin.
And so does the grid change every round? I imagine.
Yes, the grid changes every round.
This sounds overly complicated.
It's one of those ones that the rules fit on just one side of a piece of paper.
Okay. I imagine this is a better game if you play a round or two, then you pick it up.
Yeah, you just get a round or two under your belt, and then it's kind of fun. It does. So if we go back to, now that we've established the 10 things that every game needs on this show, the one thing it's really lacking is something to give it some inertia. Like if you've got a spy master that's having trouble thinking of a clue, you can set a timer, but it doesn't really make it go fast. And if you're the team that's not interacting and you're waiting for the other team to make their guesses, you're just sitting there. So it drags a little bit, but if you have the right group of people, it can be really fun.
This is the charades or the Pictionary problem. If you have somebody on your team that isn't inherently imaginative or isn't into it, like then it can really drag down the entire experience.
Yeah, I know. That's right. It's the Pictionary problem. I like that definition of it. Does that fall under one of the 10 things that every game needs, or do we need to add a 12th one?
Well, I think it is interaction with other players, and it's just bad interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the game relies too much on the charisma of the participants.
Or the enthusiasm of the participants, or the vocabulary of the participants.
Yeah, no, all of those things. Okay, so it's kind of, but games that rely that much on the interaction of the players also have a very high ceiling for how fun they can be when you get the right group of people.
This is absolutely true. There are groups of people that I will absolutely always play charades with, and there are groups of people that I will never ever play charades with again.
Yeah, like that. So that's it for this week. I think Codenames 1, The Survivor, we'll keep that one around. I'll report in next time.
It probably helps when you have like 14 people in your house that you can play board games with at the drop of a hat.
You can just get together a group. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, you and I had teased that we would talk about some good things that have come out of the pandemic. So you and I have each made a list of 3. Let's go in alternating order. You go first.
I don't remember ever making these, but they make sense to me, so it must have been past Josh that wrote these.
I think you wrote it.
All right. So we're trying to... Silver lining, right? Every cloud has its silver lining. Every F5 tornado that destroys the entire town at least has a rainbow at the end of it.
Right. Every genocide led by Thanos brings the whales back into the Hudson River.
Nice. Dude, I'm genuinely moved and touched by that. So while we're on the subject of the global pandemic that has been awful, there are some good things that have come out of it. And on my list, top of the list has got to be telework. Telework, Ben, has given me back some of the most precious resource that we all have, and that is time. I didn't realize how much more I can accomplish in a day, or how many more things that I can do if I don't have to iron my shirt in the morning. If I don't have to, be perfectly business presentable, I can just slap on some pajama pants and my slippers and then log into work. If I don't have to drive 20 minutes there and back, just all the little minutia, the little extra minutes that are stolen from me, having just because I have to travel to work and be presentable while I'm there. Having all of that,
and you had all the overhead of like also dropping off your kids and picking up your kids and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, all of that all of it just compounds to steal like an hour or two from you, depending on how far away your work is. And having that back has been wonderful.
So my first one was like that, but from a different angle.
Okay,
it's like real life can just be so relentless sometimes. There's just never a pause. It feels like you can't. It's not allowed to take a pause. You just keep doing the next thing until you're dead. So this actually was like a real world, somebody hit the pause button.
Like, I know what you're talking about. It felt very distinct when we went into lockdown, like how different life was.
Yeah. I remember like in May of 2020, everything was still on until the minute it wasn't. Suddenly, just stuff started dropping like flies. Graduation ceremonies, weddings, barbecues, parties, church meetings, everything just all of a sudden we got, like you said, all the time back. But to me, it wasn't the getting back the time so much as it was the not doing all of that stuff. The pause.
Okay. No, I get it. I'm on board. I liked it.
All right, so what's your second one?
My second one is going to be counterintuitive, but it was the food. I didn't realize how bad that my family's eating habits had become until we stopped, until we hit that pause like you're talking about, and we had to oh, well, restaurants are closed. We have to make our own food. What we realized is that between my son going to Taekwondo 2 to 3 times a week and my daughter going to dance class the other 2 days of that week, we were eating out, getting drive-through pickup on the way home to just chow it down before we had to go to bed, probably 4 times a week. And that's just not good for you. We've been forced to reassess and meal plan and actually have leftovers throughout the day. And we've made lunches. We take breaks from work at the same time when we're teleworking, and the whole family would get together and okay, let's make sandwiches and let's have some vegetables. And man, we've been eating way better.
So I'm going to go way back in time here, but in episode 4 of Bad at Magic, we reviewed a book called Scarcity by Sendil Mullathon. And in it, he talks about this. That when you got back all of that time that you didn't have, you had more slack that you could spend on this.
Yeah, this is one of the things that, we were forced to. We got the slack back, and then some of it was taken by, well, we have to figure out the food thing, and we started making more deliberate decisions on eating better.
Yeah, cool. All right, my second one is that there's a lot of things. Sometimes our society takes these small incremental movements that are probably fueled by the cynical side of me wants to say old people who are resistant to change, retiring or dying. Particularly with technologies that transform how, when, where we do work. And there was a lot of technologies waiting in the wings, because if they weren't already waiting in the wings, they wouldn't have come to the forefront so quickly during all of this. Online video conferencing and mobile technologies and those kinds of things that once the option of meeting in purpose and commuting to a central location were off the table, bam, all this stuff fell out of the sky. All the people that have been telling us you can't do it that way, it's impossible, all of a sudden it was possible.
Yeah, nobody
was fantastic.
It's been great. Nobody knew what the word Zoom was in 2019.
Right. And not only that, but I can't understate the weight of this from the government perspective, where we say, oh, we can't do that at home because we deal with things that are sensitive or secret, and you can't do that from home. Yeah, you can do that from home too.
Yeah, the government is very, very gun shy, having worked in communications about specifically that, the secret stuff. It's technology is a lot better than a lot of the regulations give it credit.
Yeah, they've already walked back some of it, and they're in the process of doing it. But I liked seeing our technology and use of it take a quantum leap forward. In fact, there's one interesting thing that I think that will change the face of science fiction forever. And that is, there seems to have been a common assumption in all of science fiction that no one ever questioned. And that was, in the future, we will become increasingly urban.
Okay. Oh.
Everyone assumed that was a fact of the future. There's lots of different things that could happen about the rate at which we can travel or whether or not we can reassemble atoms or something, but nobody ever questioned whether or not we would become increasingly urban in the future.
Everybody was living in some fancy sci-fi apartment.
Yes. And now I actually think we might start questioning that.
I believe you. As soon as you said that, it makes perfect sense. With increase of broadband connectivity and distribution of all these things, and if telework is a viable thing, there's no reason that the entire Earth could just be one big suburb.
Yeah, at least for knowledge workers, you don't need to be centrally located.
Oh, it's only a matter of time before we have the Amazon workers are just piloting robots. It's totally fine.
Yeah. All right. What's your third one?
My last one is very selfish, and that's grocery pickup. It
existed before the pandemic.
It did. It was just starting to come out before the pandemic, but I don't know. I felt who uses that? Old people? I'm going to go into the grocery store, because I can get my own groceries and I don't know everything I need. I have to see the things on the shelves. Maybe it'll jog my memory, blah, blah, blah. I probably said on this podcast why I was against it at some point. I'm sure I did. Like, if you go to the early episodes, somewhere I was like, oh, grocery pickup, him-haw, whatever. But no, it's great. Love it. Never going back. I don't ever want to go in a grocery store again. Like, again, this is me getting my precious resource back. Instead of spending 45 minutes to an hour messing around in the grocery store, dealing with all of these annoying
you just call
social
up last
actions.
week's order and say re-deliver.
We spend 15 minutes like pulling up last week's order, reviewing all the items. Nope, don't need this. Need an extra one of these. We're good. And then I go sit in the parking lot for 5 seconds, and somebody brings it all out to me.
Nice.
Oh, and Ben, this is okay. This is a standard feature in most new cars I've discovered, but I've never had it before. There is a button right by my driver's side door where I push it and the back opens. I don't even have to get out of my car. Like
it's like your Volkswagen was designed for operating in the pandemic.
The first time I went to pick up groceries, I got out of my car to go open the back. And the second time, I'm like, I wonder what this button does. And I clicked it, and the back opened by itself. And it was my wife made endless fun of me, like, yeah, every car has that, you dork. And I was just so giddy, like, I didn't know, it's so cool.
Awesome. Wait, I'm kind of confused about something because a couple of episodes ago, maybe like 4 or 5 episodes ago, you told a story about like being trapped between a couple of senior citizens in the grocery store.
Did I? Oh, like either in an aisle or in
like
the
you
line
were
or something?
trying to be polite and not telling them to get out of the way.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was literally boxed in. I don't do that anymore because I don't have to go inside anymore.
Okay, so all right. Got it. So you hadn't fully made the transition at that point.
No, since we've done the grocery pickup, like I did the grocery pickup one time, and I have not gone back in there since.
Okay. I haven't done that yet, but I think you've convinced me to give it a shot.
You trust people to deliver your fast food, and people who have delivered you chicken bones instead of your dinner.
I understand how there's a bit of cognitive disconnect here about how like. It isn't that I've decided not to do grocery pickup. It's that I haven't decided to do it.
Gotcha. Give it a chance.
Okay. All right. My third one is family togetherness. You know, it just really has brought us together in a way that wasn't happening before. It's there's a little bit of friction sometimes, but there's also like, hey, we can't go see other people, but we can see these people. So let's figure out what's nice. My family, for instance, my daughter and I went and built a badminton court in the backyard where we just cut the grass real low and we spray painted lines on the ground and we'd have badminton tournaments. And it was fantastic.
That's super cool. And that's nice for people that don't live in scorching heat.
Yeah. All right. Now that we've gotten all that awesome stuff about the pandemic out of the way, I want to throw in one random rant. I don't know why it's taken me so long to get to this, but I want to say that there is only one way in creation to do s'mores.
Okay, this is easily the most random thing that you've ever said to me.
I know.
You're talking about s'mores, the campfire snack, where it's graham crackers.
Where you roast a marshmallow, put some chocolate on a graham cracker, and eat it, and it's gooey and warm and crunchy and yummy.
Okay. Do you want to expound upon your...
I do not know why corporations in this country feel like they need to try to capitalize on the feelings of nostalgia for a campfire treat and try to repackage it and sell it to us in 100 different ways because it is never good. S'mores ice cream sucks. S'mores candy bars, terrible. S'mores breakfast cereal, it's awful. Like, this thing can only exist when you have the warm and the gooey and the melty and the crunchy together, and that can only happen when you assemble it on the spot. Oh. Anything else is just chocolate and marshmallow and graham cracker don't go that well together when they're cold.
Oh, Ben, is this the first time that something nostalgic has come up to bite you? Like, it didn't uphold those expectations.
S'mores only work one way. They're only good one way.
Man, I felt like this when I saw the Star Wars prequels. Like, they're like, when you're talking about the capitalization on nostalgia and it's never as good as the original, man, that's been a thing forever.
The thing is, I feel like a sucker because sometimes I'll try it. I'll get another s'mores flavored thing. I'd be like, maybe this will be good. No, why did I do that?
Okay, so two things could be happening here. One, you might just have super high standards for s'mores, which is ridiculous. Like, do you only get name brand, like graham crackers, when you do your s'mores, or will the generic store brand suffice?
I generally tend to buy Kraft's, puff marshmallows, the blue box, honey golden grams, and the Hershey's chocolate. The standard thing. But this isn't like you're paying twice as much or something.
But it doesn't matter from the economics perspective. As an economic being, you should buy the cheapest stuff that will suffice for your purposes. The fact that
if I was at a campfire and someone handed me a generic graham cracker, as long as it wasn't stale, I'm fine.
I don't know. Like, based on your rant, it sounds like you would throw it in their face and kick coals at them.
No, I'm not saying that I didn't say anything about being a snob for the brand of the ingredients. It's that it has to be assembled on the spot at the campfire. Stale graham crackers won't do it. As long as they're, crunchy graham crackers, gooey marshmallow, melty chocolate, it's good to go.
Got it. All right, that was my first thing. The second thing is, you might just love s'mores so much that you want it to be good. Like, you want to capture that feeling. Like, something about you is reaching out and asking the universe for more s'mores.
I get that it's important for you to play the devil's advocate in these kinds of scenarios, but I want to challenge you right now to think of a single good s'mores flavored thing that you've ever had.
Okay, so don't come at me, bro, but I don't particularly care for s'mores.
Oh no.
I've always found it to be way too much chocolate. I just can't handle that much.
That's easy to adjust. Just give it 2 squares instead of 3.
Oh, Lord, Ben, no. Like, 1 square is too much. Like, if I'm having a s'more, then all I'm doing is I'm using the
Why do you hate nuclear surety, Josh?
All right, so s'mores for me is maybe I'll put a marshmallow on half a graham cracker and eat that. Otherwise, I'm just roasting marshmallows and eating those.
Yeah. All right, I'm done with my rant. Thanks for sitting through that.
No problem. If I ever hear about a s'mores product, I'll let you know.
Yeah, give it a try and see if you're like, Ben was right. This sucks. Okay, it is time for Bad at Logic. So this week it's my turn. We're going to do a logical fallacy. And the card on top of my deck here, and I think this is appropriate for the second anniversary of the Bad at Magic podcast. This is a classic logical fallacy. It is the slippery slope logical fallacy.
Yes. So I don't have the card in front of me, but from what I understand about the slippery slope, it's this concept where if I'm trying to either uphold my position or downplay yours, I can say, well, your thing leads to X, which leads to Y, which leads to Z, which means X might as well just be Z.
Very good. Asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z will consequently happen too. Therefore, A should not happen.
Right. And this is the idea of, you apply this anywhere. It's like, well,
it's used very deliberately. It's used manipulatively, which is when it's at its worst as a logical fallacy.
Now, let's talk about capitalism for a second, because capitalism, corporations are just trying to maximize their profit, so inevitably they're going to buy out all the competitors, and we're going to end up with monopolies. So therefore, capitalism is wrong, Ben, because we can't have monopolies running the world.
Oh, and I'll rewind just a minute and say, if you aren't careful about what brands of graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate you buy, you're going to waste money. Why do you hate having money, Ben?
Well, if you're buying like a cheaper graham cracker, you might as well just replace it with sawdust, because that's what they are anyway. So why aren't you just eating sawdust and gravel? Like, that's what s'mores are.
You can reduce anything to ridiculousness, but I think the point when this is most conspicuously a logical fallacy is when you make a really big jump. Because some things do naturally lead to others. It's not a logical fallacy to say if one thing happens, then something else is going to happen. That frequently is the case.
Well, that is frequently the case, but there's another part of this. Like you said, yes, at some point of your logical chain, there could be an abnormally large jump or a not necessarily logical jump. However, there's also the point where if in this causal chain, each step could be progressive and make logical sense, looking at it from the abstract, but in the situation, it could be a decision that you would never ever make. Like saying that the way that Amazon is functioning is going to turn the entire country into city-states of like built around Amazon distribution centers. Like, there's a logical chain that makes that seem plausible, but at some point, everybody would stand and be like, "Hey, no, this is dumb. Let's not take this next step."
Right. Yeah. So don't do it, people. Don't use the logical fallacy the logical fallacy of slippery slope to reinforce your position.
Or
it's bad logic.
if somebody's using it against you, identify, hey, that's a slippery slope. Things won't necessarily shake out that way, which it also kind of ties into the other fallacies of like false dichotomy. Like just because A could lead to Z, A could also lead to a million other things. You have no idea.
Yeah. All right, for bad English today, our word is knackered.
Knackered?
Knackered. It's a word that the British use quite a bit that we don't use at all in the United States. It means worn out or debilitated, exhausted. It's often said of like yourself, like, I didn't show up for PT this morning because I was knackered from tying the feedback on over the weekend. Or you could say it of something inanimate, and then it means broken. Like, I was late to work this morning because my car was knackered.
Oh, Ben, you precious sheltered child, you. We do have this word in English, and
what is it?
It's a 4-letter word that starts with F. Like, it's effed. I didn't show up to PT this morning because I was effed.
Yeah, I guess a tamer version of that might be tuckered out.
Tuckered? No, maybe, but I don't know. If your truck is broken, you don't say it's tuckered.
Bushed, wiped out.
Ben, there is no substitute for the versatility that is the F word.
Well, the British use this one. I did some research on it, and I found out that much like the ancient professions that have since become last names like Smith and Cooper, the word knacker used to be a profession.
Oh, cool.
So you used to have a knacker in town. So I want you to guess, Josh. What do you think the knacker did?
What did the knacker do in town? For some reason, like something to do with like clacking balls, like a billiards table comes into my mind, and I have no idea why.
All right. It's just the word sounds like that. So the knacker was the guy who would live in town, and he would buy old worn out horses, and he would turn them into glue.
Oh, I guess I can see that.
Yeah.
So you say a horse was knackered.
Exactly.
And
you sell them to the knacker, and then it became a word to mean something's tired or worn out.
Oh, that's a fun job. It's like, oh, Daddy, what do you do for work? It's like, oh, well, I break down this living, majestic beast into an adhesive. It's a wonderful chemical process. Let me destroy your dreams and show you how it's done.
I mean, I'm sure there were other things you could do with worn out horses besides glue, but that's the most notorious one.
You probably eat them, I assume.
All right, so Josh, you and I decided that for episode 52, we needed to do something worthy of the 2-year anniversary of the Bad at Magic podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we've been around for 2 years. People have been listening to us. Like, if you are still listening to us, clearly it's because you trust us. And if you put your trust in us, then we're going to take it to the next level. Then I propose that we solve all of the world's problems in advance in under an hour right now.
Go.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Bad at Magic is going to save the world. We are going to describe existential threats to humanity, things that could bring an end to the world as we know it. We're then going to explain our personal feelings and thoughts about these threats, maybe the likelihood, how we personally respond. I don't know. We'll keep it loose. But then we're also going to describe how each of us would solve said existential threat.
Yeah.
Great. So, it sounds great. We've broken it up into two.
So let's save the world.
Let's save the world. We've broken it into 2 categories. We have real threats and then less real threats. And there's you put a subtitle in here that we'll get to it, and I'm gonna poke you about it. But the first one, I mean, this one's kind of in the news. People have heard about it. Let's talk about global pandemics, Ben.
All right, now, if we're going to talk about global pandemics, I want to rewind 2 years. Let's pretend that it is August of 2019. No one's even heard of COVID yet, and now we're having this discussion. How would we say, what?
Oh, so you're trying to take the hindsight bias out of it. Like we don't know what was happening. Like we just had this idea that there is a virus that could come out and wipe out all of humanity. How would you solve it?
In the modern global economy, people are flying around the world real fast. What if something came in, and let's give some categories, because there was a really good film a couple of years ago called Contagion that really covered this really well. What if we had something that spread quickly and easily, had a long incubation period, and was very lethal?
and that's all of the movies that talk about these pandemics always showed, and they always relied on and were resolved by a swift, consolidated governmental response. Like it has to be like a giant organization that comes in and just shuts everything down and like puts people into groups and with no mercy and just takes care of the problem, which I think we've all seen that can succeed to varying levels.
And it would be very problematic.
Very problematic. And I think what makes COVID-19 so unique is because, let's say the lethality of COVID-19 was just a couple of percentage points higher. I think people would take it way more seriously than it does.
Agreed.
If it's just lethal enough,
there would start to be things like public panic that goes beyond toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
Yeah, we had public panic already anyway. But I mean
real public panic, like breaking into other people's houses kind of public panic.
Hopefully it wouldn't be that bad. That's another trope that's in movies that I don't think people get right. Is everybody thinks of the apocalypse and they look at this wasteland of abandoned cars and burned down houses and looted buildings. Like, how bad do things have to get before everybody universally, without discussing it with each other, abandons civilization at the same time?
I think it just takes a very specific set of circumstances, and here's what they are. It would be that there was a very limited resource that was seen as essential, over which there was insufficient governance. Let's say, for instance, in the movie Contagion, it was that they could only produce the inoculation so quickly, and there was like a lottery to determine who got it.
Okay.
Would people cheat on the lottery? Would they try to steal a vaccination? Would they try to cut in line? Absolutely. Or would they all wait in an orderly, organized manner?
They would absolutely try to do all the things that you just said, but that problem is solved by time. Like, that problem doesn't lead to the breakdown of all of civilization. Because for every person that is working to wheedle their way closer in the line, there's 3 people that are just going to wait their turn, patiently in their house and obey the rules and keep going to work like they're supposed to.
I don't know, Josh. I think, like, it just you tweak certain aspects of this scenario and it all falls apart. What if it was just lethal enough that we locked down to the point where people had to rely on the food that they have stored at home rather than the supply chain?
Well,
and now starvation becomes part of the equation.
I don't think that's a realistic scenario because really, starvation. Like, I understand where you're going with that, but there are ways to solve that problem. And that's another assumption that when these problems crop up, that they're just like, oh no, insurmountable starvation problem. No, there's always solution to problems. People are always going to work to try to fix these things.
Okay. I liked it. You accused me of not having faith in humanity, but I like the way you're having faith in humanity here. You're right. We would we wouldn't just go to the grocery store and buy Ritz crackers anymore. We might go to like a food distribution point and pick up 50-pound bags of rice, but we would still eat.
If I hate that I'm the one that's rooting for humanity here, because that's not my bag. But if history has taught us anything, is that humans are capable of solving problems. And so when we are faced with problems, just because we don't know the solution in a bottle, like right now I can't think of a solution to the starvation issue, doesn't mean we wouldn't solve it.
Okay, I want to point out a few things now that I'm taking the hindsight thing off the table and looking at what happened during the COVID response. Okay. So as you remember, I was operationalized. I was taken into operations center and I was working 12-hour shifts overnight to, answer and coordinate resources. And we were doing things like moving the Transcom asset, the United States Naval Hospital ship Comfort, to New York Harbor. Okay. If you remember, we were doing that because we thought it was necessary. And in the end, we redeployed it home and it only ever housed like 2 people during its entire deployment. So it wasn't needed. And you probably remember these vast field hospitals that they set up in gyms and high school gymnasiums and that kind of thing that went empty for the entirety of the time. Now, that was a very good practice run for if something more serious ever comes along. And we've shown that we can do those kinds of things. And I think you're right. We would be resilient. We would overcome. But I still think there's just a point where humanity would just be pushed off the edge if it's had, say, a 20% lethality rate or something like that.
I mean, there's so many variables to that. I know what you're saying, but it becomes a time function. there would be a time that it was very chaotic and people were panicking and things were flying off the shelves and flying off and people were going nuts. But it would all settle eventually. Especially something with a lethality rate that was that high, you would expect that it would burn through the population at some point. So
you said something that kind of surprised me, that there would be a very strong government-led authoritative response. What do you think the right answer is in these kinds of scenarios? You think it's rigidly enforce curfews and quarantine zones and travel bans and?
So we're transitioning to how we would solve the problem then.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think the way to solve this is we've seen it successfully implemented in other countries for the COVID-19 pandemic. They locked down early, they locked down long, and they locked down hard. And it was uncomfortable, which, I mean, people...
Okay, but we're looking at countries like New Zealand, where they also are very geographically separated, and we can kind of use them, but it's a false example.
I know what I get that. We saw it when we implemented in the U.S. We implemented lockdowns across almost uniformly across most of the states. Most states had similar structures as far as no eating in restaurants, no going to public places unless you absolutely had to, that kind of thing. And we saw the numbers go down. We saw these things go away. The problem is the culture in our country is we don't want to tolerate any amount of discomfort from an external source.
Not just discomfort, but incursion on our freedoms.
Or perceived incursion on our freedoms. This is that slippery slope thing again. It's well, the government can't tell me to wear a mask. Well, government can't tell me to wear seatbelts or stop at stoplights or not smoke indoors anymore either. I'm gonna do all these rules because they're impinging on my freedom and they're not supposed to. The government impinges on your freedom all the time, and we do it because we all agree that we're better off if we just follow the rules. This is one of those things. I don't want to go into...
So what I hear you saying is that there does need to be some government-led and enforced response, but we have to be cautious about authoritarianism.
I think it needs to be... It doesn't necessarily need to be the government. It doesn't necessarily have to be an authoritative response. It needs to be a uniform response. It needs to be some kind of person that's on a podium that says, we have demonstrated that these things work, so we are going to do these things. And we all have to agree as a community, as a people, to do these things. And then everybody does them. And if they don't, there needs to be some incentive to do it. Whether that's an economic or a punitive, I don't know. But that's where the authoritarianism comes in.
I'm not going to disagree with you here. I think the most dangerous thing to happen is that people realize that by politicizing the conflict over the steps that need to be taken, they could gain power. And then decisions that were being made were political rather than logical. And that's when it became a problem.
I think if we had to point at one thing that caused this whole debacle to be drawn out much longer than it needed to be, it was the unnecessary politicizing of potential solutions to this problem.
Agreed. All right. We can move on from that one. What's next?
All right. So let's talk about another... Oh, man, these are all touchy now that I'm looking at them. But this is a potentially real threat to our existence as a people, and that is climate change.
Okay.
So
let's just assume that it is for the sake of the podcast.
And it could be anything from the realistic scenario where the temperature changes just enough to wipe out crops and there's mass starvation, or all the way up to that Kevin Costner movie Waterworld, which is a total...
Where's the land?
It was a total flop, but I liked it as a kid. I thought that was awesome.
It too.
So
the Bad at Magic podcast likes Waterworld, the movie.
Ben, what are your feelings on climate change?
Okay, this is another one where the solutions have been politicized because people can derive power out of it. And I mean, I think a couple episodes ago, you and I talked about our feelings about nuclear power. And I heard on another podcast an interview of U.S. Transportation Secretary Paul Buttigieg, or however you say that name.
Uh-huh.
And the host brought up with him nuclear power. He's like, well, what about nuclear power? And Paul Buttigieg is like, well, when they approved the Hadron Collider, the insurance company had to sign off on the fact that if they turned it on, they could create a black hole that swallowed the entire universe. And then he moved on. And I was like, that didn't answer the question at all.
I think he was probably referring then to economic incentives.
No, he wasn't at all. What he was saying was that with something like nuclear power, as opposed to coal power, there are small less likely, but higher risk.
I see. When you're talking about insurance, it's like there's a small chance that you could destroy the entire state of Nebraska.
Right.
Yeah. So I get that. That could be a problem for insurance.
As opposed to like a coal miner dies in the mine.
Yeah, which is unfortunately I'm sure that's a hard science at this point. Like if you run a coal mine of this capacity, you're going to lose this many miners across this time span.
But the point he was just making was about the way that humans accept and react to risk. Just like you were talking about someone that might take their seatbelt off because they want to express their freedom and they're not concerned about dying in an accident.
No, hang on a second. I'm going to make this distinction. He was discussing the way that corporations accept and mitigate risk.
No, he wasn't.
If the
he was talking about the government approving it. I'm sorry, I misrepresented it.
Oh,
I'll
okay,
give it to
got
you
it.
so you can listen
Okay,
to it.
if it's they had to ask the government, hey, can we turn on this scientific thing that might destroy the planet? Then I can see that being a more conservative scenario. Like, no, you're not allowed to turn on the thing that'll destroy the planet.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to the question. Like, I remember through much of my teenager years and young college years where I was very much on the conservative train of like, the climate change isn't real, and then climate change is real, but it's not humanity's fault, and then climate change is real and it's humanity's fault, but it's not as bad as they say. I don't know where I'm at now, man. I guess I mean, there's no doubt that the planet's getting warmer on average and that has impacts to the environment. I think that there are people out there who are very shrill and alarmist, whether that's because they're exactly right or because the only way they can get attention is by overselling it. I think, like you said about the way we would respond to a pandemic, rather than it being apocalyptic, it would be a series of small changes. Humanity is very, very resilient, and we would adjust to make the changes as needed.
Okay. So I'm kind of on the same board. When I was in college, I honestly remember saying to people that I thought that humanity being able to impact the environment on that scale was arrogant. I said that, and now looking back, that was really ignorant and stupid of me to say because I didn't know what I was talking about. But I was in college, so that's all you did was talk about stuff you had no idea what you're talking about.
It's a whole institution.
So I did kind of the same progression that you did. Like, okay, climate change is real, probably not our fault. Okay, climate change is real, it is our fault, probably not as bad as you think. I'm at the point now where climate change is real, it's our fault, it's pretty bad, and I'm not worried about where we are, I'm worried about the vector. It's like, if we just take a steady state, take a snapshot in time, that if we say that it is humanity's fault, we acknowledge that and we've proven that, and we see that it's been getting worse over time, that means we are on an upward vector, which means that we need to make change just to even level out. Because as we go into the future, we're just making the problem worse every day. That's where I'm at, is climate change is real and we need to start taking even if it's not like...
Okay, so what steps do you say? Are you just talking about like electric cars and windmills?
Renewable energy, nuclear power. Like, we need to get off of fossil fuels as soon as we can. And I mean, electric cars are coming around. Like, the industry, the auto industry is going to electric cars.
I feel like this is a self-solving problem. It's going to happen.
Well, that portion of it will, but there's still other things. Power generation is one of the bigger polluters in our just energy consumption in general.
I've read some really good and really well-researched articles that talk about the scale. You know, you can't just replace a coal power plant with a few windmills.
No,
you can't even replace a coal power plant with 1,000 windmills.
There's a reason that we use fossil fuels, because it is very energy dense. There's a lot of energy to be pulled out of a very small area, and renewables aren't nearly as dense as fossil fuels are, except when we start talking about nuclear power.
Right.
Now,
I think we're in violent agreement about that fact.
Yeah, it's an energy density problem. And someday we'll figure out fusion, and then we'll fix that problem. And then how do we fix climate change, Ben? For me, so two things. One, I'm not super worried about it because I'm kind of still hoping that I'll be dead before it becomes cataclysmic. And second, I felt a lot better of it after reading that book that mentioned the geoengineering. The fact that if we were really desperate, we can send up some planes with some complex chemicals, spray in the atmosphere, and just give us a layer of sunscreen for a couple of years while we figure this whole thing out.
Yeah, that was super freakonomics, and I agree. I think that there are options that currently aren't on the table because they aren't necessary, but if they became necessary, that we could give it a try. And I'm very much of the mindset that I think we can do that. You know, I'm not against nuclear power. I'm not against Boudreaux's blanket.
You know, I have to throw this in there though. Like, as we're talking about all these existential threats, I want to put a footnote on every single one of mine. One of the biggest things we need to do is get the heck off of this planet. Because all of these existential threats, if they do happen and humanity is wiped out, we need to have people somewhere else that keep the game going.
But that's such a different thing from what you said a second ago about as long as it doesn't happen while I'm still alive. Like, you're talking about your own life versus the existence of humanity for all of eternity.
This is the weird dichotomy that exists in my brain, is because me, the practical person, the practical side of my brain right now is just worried about me and mine. And that's where I'm at as a father, as a husband, as a person. Like, as long as I'm taken care of and I'm taking care of my little island of family, I'm good. Then there's the part of my brain that's bigger, that thinks bigger, that wants to take all of these ideas and be this person that I see in TV. I want to be Captain Picard. I want to be these noble leaders that are saving people, but I'm never going to be that person. But that person worries about all of humanity. And one of the biggest things we can do to help all of humanity is diversify the rock that we're hurtling through space on.
Okay, I want to do a 60-second reducto ad absurdum. You, Josh, are a collection of atoms that wants to perpetuate. You know that your DNA is the opposite of entropy. You know, that matter just decreasing in energy and spreading farther apart. No, it wants to get more complex and make that happen forever. And inside of you is DNA that somehow formed you into an intelligent organism that is now concerned about not just your own personal DNA, but all of the DNA of all of humanity being perpetuated forever.
You're talking about two different things. So in my brainstem, the part of my brain that I can't control, that's worried about my own personal existence. And that's the stuff that tells me, hey, run away from the bear. Like, that's when you're talking about DNA and molecules. Hey, that's what you're.
There's a monsoon coming. Put your stuff back in the car.
Hey, that's lightning. Lightning scary. Electricity bad. Yeah, that's the part of the brain you're talking about. What I'm talking about is that we are unique because we have these consciousnesses, conscious eye, whatever the plural of consciousness is, that can abstract the fact that we are a part of a larger community and then care about the community and not just ourselves. This is a philosophical construct that only exists in humans.
Yeah. Okay. We got to keep the pace up if we're going to get through all these.
We're not going to.
So I don't really have anything else to say about climate change unless you do.
I don't. All right, next one.
All right.
Now we're going to get into some fun stuff. All right, we're going to bring the tone down, make it a little lighter, make it a little more 1980s vibe.
Lighten things up a bit.
Lighten things up a bit with global thermonuclear war. What if Putin really gets that hair up his butt and Biden's just on a spicy day and they decide to just knock out blows and we're going to settle this once and for all. Russia v. America. Let's go, baby.
And they both hit the big red button and launch all the nukes.
All the nukes. Not one or two and call it a day. No, all the nukes. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so you're saying it happens and we need to do something to prevent it, or it already happened and now how do we carry on?
I'm saying, all right, we read an article tomorrow and it's Cold War Part 2 started up again. We're at each other's throats. The doomsday clock is at 3 minutes to midnight. How do we prevent global nuclear war? Before that, how do you feel about global nuclear war?
Okay, so I currently, by profession, exist as supporting two of the three legs of the America's nuclear triad. It is my job to make sure that we are ready to bring those mushroom clouds to planet Earth.
Okay, so let's be very clear that we're not going to say anything classified. We're not going to divulge any secrets.
But I'm just saying, if you're looking for an unbiased opinion as related to this kind of thing, I'm kind of in a position where I'm a bit biased.
So hang on a second. Now I want to dive into this just for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you walk around the office? They have motivational posters with mushroom clouds. Yeah, baby. Is everybody rooting for nuclear war in this?
Okay, you were talking about the tension between the two parts of you, and there's a very interesting tension with this. It is that we have to be so good at proving to everyone on Earth that we are capable of doing this that we'll never have to do it.
Listen, We can glass this planet so hard and so fast, like, don't even try me. This is your mother counting to 3. I'm going to count to 3.
That's why we never say the word nuclear without the word deterrence. It's not nuclear strike or nuclear attack or nuclear detonation. It's nuclear deterrence. It's we could do this if we wanted to.
Oh, so you guys are 100% in the field of defense? You have nuclear missile stuff? No, you have 100% offensive capability, and don't you try to talk to me about deterrence.
So I've read a lot of academic papers about the idea of nuclear disarmament, how to get from where we got to now, where we had this escalating contest of one-upsmanship between two superpowers competing for global position, to a world without nukes. And let me tell you, Josh, I would love if that were the end game. I would love that we have eliminated that ability from Earth, although it might be useful for some of these other scenarios we have.
Oh. I'm going to let that one fly. Let's just move on.
But I would rather live in a world where no one had nuclear weapons. But in the meantime, we have to show that we carry a big stick that we don't need to use.
Well, and if we're being real, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Information, technology, can't be undiscovered.
Right. That's it. That's the security dilemma of nuclear weapons. If I were to agree to disarm them, then my opponent could automatically be better than me if he didn't.
Okay. So my entire thoughts of global thermonuclear war can be summed up with nukes are bad. That's it. We shouldn't have the capacity to deal that level of destruction and cataclysm and collateral damage that we do. So, if I was king for a day, half of the budget that you have to maintain your offensive capability, Ben, half of that budget tomorrow would be to detection and safe disposal. The detection being that there's going to be third-party actors.
We've tried this, and we have.
Okay.
We've reduced the number and degree of our stockpile, and this is not a secret. This is things that are done very openly, so that there's a lot of public scrutiny of it.
No, I understand. That's the whole part of disarmament. You have to show this is what we have, and we are making the conscious decision to decrease it to kind of ease tensions with everybody that might be paying attention.
But it's like when you it's this dilemma you had when as a kid where you wanted to trade somebody for something, but you didn't want to let go of the one you had until they let go of the one they had, and you had this little tug of war.
I get that, and this is why when I said detection, I'm referring specifically to I don't know. We need to get to the Minority Report portion of technology where we can track nukes from space, regardless of how small they are, wherever they are on the planet, just to keep tight controls and security over these things.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting into areas I can't talk about.
And that's the end of that. The next discussion we're going to have is, this one's a little touchy. God, they're all touchy. Why is it so politicized, the things that are going to end all of our lives? All right, doesn't matter.
I don't know, but we're doing good so far. Hopefully listeners, if you're offended by what we're saying, you can still get on board with our ridiculousness.
All right, so the next one is surging tribalism. And that is the idea that early man discovered that if we grouped up together as family units or as clans or as peoples or whatever, we had a better opportunity to survive. That is still in us in the way that we fear the other. This manifests itself modern day as racism, as rejecting ideas that don't coincide with your current outlook. Hardcore,
but it's disguised in the wrapper of belonging rather than hating.
Right. It's the idea that I accept this group of people or this group of ideas, and I reject everything outside of this accepted circle, to the point where it becomes violent.
Yeah. And this happens all over the world all the time. It has for all of the history of humanity. But it felt so real on January 6, 2021 in our country, in our way of life.
And we're talking specifically in this sense, the difference in ideals. There was a group of individuals that legitimately believed that their country was being taken over or wrongfully overthrown by a set of ideas that they disagreed with. And so they took violent action to try to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to play these psycho nut jobs up as the victims here. They are complete idiots. It was a free and fair election. Let's get that on the record. I'm not, while I can understand their perspective, I can also wholeheartedly disagree with it.
Yeah.
And just me calling them psycho nut jobs, that is an indicator of surging tribalism. Like, they are clearly not part of my tribe. How do I fix that in myself, Ben?
Okay, so I want to jump straight to the solution on this one.
And it's going to come right out of the Bible.
It does in a way. I just say it's more of like the application of Christian values, and that is that we can reject tribalism. We've reached a point where our technology and our wealth has made it so that we can share, and that we're all better off when we do. We can help. When we discover new medical technologies, we can share them as widely as possible. When we create new fertilizers and harvesting methods that allow our crops to produce more bounteously, we can just share it with everyone. And we can diminish poverty, we can diminish suffering, we can diminish all of those things and be better off as all of humanity working together.
Man, that's such a wonderful sentiment that can't possibly happen. Because
it is happening. It has happened.
It does, and we are making like great strides when you're talking about all of human history. Like, it is getting better, but it is still a problem now, and there is no doubt that there
is resistance to this very idea.
And as if you're the group of people that are trying to be open and accepting of all ideas, you are opening yourself up to be trod under the steel-toed boot of the hardcore oppressive fascism movement that rises up and takes power.
That sounds horrible. Good job. Good terrible imagery.
This happened. This happened in Germany pre-World War II. Like everybody's trying to get their lives back together, and there was perfect political circumstances for a minority of viewpoints to become the majority shareholders of power in that country, which led to horrible, horrifying, easily the worst things that have ever happened in human history.
Yeah.
So, like, when I say stuff like this, like tribalism, it's a scary prospect because, like you said, the solution is to be more accepting. But that then opens you up to the threat of the other tribe then just rising up behind your back.
Yeah. All right, so we've listed off 1, 2, 3, 4 real threats to the humanity and the future of human existence: a global pandemic, apocalyptic climate change, global thermonuclear war, and surging tribalism. Those all sound very terrible. But I think we presented some real solutions. For the pandemic, we could have a somewhat authoritarian but meted response with applying the ingenuity of humanity to diminish and control the outbreak and effects of any pandemic.
Yeah, a unified response, I think, is what we settled on.
For climate change, we need to, regardless of political beliefs, address the real shortages and do what we can to reduce our impact on the environment and respond to the changes as needed with the technology that's available to us.
For every person that's out there buying a brand new electric car, there's some guy buying another extended cab pickup truck that he doesn't really need. Thanks for that, Ben.
Yeah, that's a great microcosm of what's happening here on the Bad at Magic podcast. You could also say that you bought a brand new car that utilized a whole bunch of new elements that were mined from the earth, and I reused an old one that can still be used for many years. So I was recycling and you were buying new. And then for global thermonuclear war, I think we agree that we'd all be better off if we could just disarm. Until then, walk softly, carry a big stick. And for surging tribalism, globalism is the answer.
It's just love thy neighbor. That's what it comes down to.
We're citizens of the city of Earth.
Everybody, wake up. We all live on this stupid same planet. We breathe the same air. Like, just knock it off.
Now, I know you don't give a lot of credence to this, and I was baiting you with this header, but I put under the real threats category biblical apocalypse.
And I get what you're saying. Like, this is the quote-unquote act of God stuff. Things that is outside the scope of any human's control, yes, but are real absolute threats. You just used the word biblical to set me off. And you did. Good job.
It's become its own adjective.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll give you that.
It could be, a massive volcano eruption, which has happened, like the caldera in the middle of the United States in Wyoming. What's that place again?
Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah, Yellowstone National Park, there in between Idaho and Montana. But as far as biblical apocalypse goes, there are parts in the New Testament that prophesy of actual gathering of the forces of evil and a war to end all wars.
Oh boy, sounds good. I'll probably get called up for that one.
You get called out of reserve status. Anyway, I don't think there's any avoiding this one. It's coming.
What, the biblical apocalypse?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of disaster movies. Like 2012 comes to mind, where like
I didn't watch that one.
You didn't watch 2012?
No. Do you recommend it?
No, I absolutely don't. It was a ridiculous like nonsense from start to finish. It's like, oh, how did we fly from California to China on one tank of gas? Oh, wow, the tectonic plates really moved. Like, seriously, that's how you're going to explain that away?
It got closer while we were in the air.
Yep, that is how they explain that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If an actual act of God happens, like if the clouds part and God goes, you know what? This is Sodom and Gomorrah all over again. Y'all are done. Your extra lives are over. I'm sick of it.
Tweet everybody out of the pool.
Yeah. Hashtag you're done. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. It just goes back to my footnote on all of this, Ben. We got to get off this rock. Like, if the world decides to implode, like if the Hadron Super Collider decides to create that tiny black hole and destroy the planet, the only way we're going to survive that is if we're not on the planet at the time.
Okay. I like that Josh solution, because I'm going to depart from you here. These same scriptures that prophesy of the coming of this great and final apocalypse to end our time on earth talk about, as an individual, you can be secure during this time through personal righteousness and faith in God.
Have you ever watched the show American Dad?
No.
All right, they did a rapture episode, and what I love about this is the second half of the episode showed like 5 years into the rapture. All of the pure souls were gone, and it was just
rapture is the born again Christian word that refers to this time where like all of the believers are taken up into heaven.
Yes, and so all the
not everyone believes this. It's that the word rapture is not in the Bible.
Fair enough,
but go ahead.
But it was funny in this episode, so let me have this for a second. All the good people were gone. All the sinners were left down here, literally battling demons. And the main character of the show had like this wicked scar, and he was known as like this hardcore demon slaying guy. And he just rode from town to town on a motorcycle, just kicking butt.
That sounds awesome.
I feel like I feel like that could be fun. Like, if
that's a possibility, I want to try that.
It's like, listen, like if I don't get called up for the rapture, like that's fine, totally understandable. There's no way I'm getting in anyway, but I could be that hardcore like action hero movie or action movie hero. That sounds fun.
Okay, I want to take a tangent for a second because I'm imagining this scenario kind of like you just described. Let's imagine that some event really like this happens where all of a sudden everything has changed and there's that moment where there's a little bit of disbelief and everyone's standing around waiting for someone else to make the first move. I'm trying to come up with a scenario, but let's just imagine like you're at the water park and all of a sudden all the lifeguards get down off their chairs and walk away.
Okay.
But the park's still open and everyone's still there. So who's going to be the first one to like play chicken with someone on their shoulders? Be like, hey, nobody's stopping us. We can play chicken. Like, now take that to the ridiculous degree of anything you want. Like, who's going to be the first one to roam the streets openly wearing guns and ammo and like vigilante enforcing the peace? Like, if you and I were both there, which of us is going to break the rules first because we're still testing the waters to see if the authoritarianism is still there?
So here's the thing, Ben. Like, it depends on the scenario entirely because, like, you want me to say I'd be the guy that's like, yeah, break all the rules, we'll start shooting my guns in the air. But in reality, I'm not that guy. I am much more likely to be the one that, like, how dare the lifeguards walk away, and I'm going to climb up in the lifeguard chair and be like, all right, everybody out of the pool.
Yeah, I can see this in like scenarios where it's going on your ethic of line. Of queuing behavior. Like you have this very deep ethic of first in, first out.
Like,
but that's like the first thing that would go in these kinds of scenarios. It's everyone for themselves.
Well, that's funny you say that, because for me, I would respect first come, first serve more than I would respect the sanctity of human life. Like, if we went to like the Walgreens to get some medicine and somebody cut me in line and there was no authority anymore, I'd be more likely to murder that person than I would be to cut him in line.
You know, if you just made first come, first serve like the basis for your ethic, it would be a legitimate thing that you could derive other things from.
I don't want to go down that path because there's either a well-balanced human or a psychopath at the end of it, and there's no way of telling until we get there.
All right. Well, I feel like we've solved all those real threats, but what else is there that we need to worry about?
Well, this is the thing. Like, those are the things that will keep you up at night, because like if it happens, it happens, and there's a real chance that they could happen. These ones, I mean, it could happen, but we're into like the tiny percent chances. This is the Hollywood nonsense that just plays up for entertainment value. So,
or just mathematical possibility.
Well, all right. So the first one we're talking about, it is a mathematical possibility, and that is a planet-killing asteroid.
Right.
Okay. So
it's happened before. It could happen again. There's stuff floating around out there in space that there's an infinitesimal possibility that it slams into Earth.
I remember very distinctly. I was in my wife's car, and we were driving from Clovis, New Mexico to Ashland, Kansas to go see my in-laws for the weekend with my son. And I remember hearing on the news that there was an asteroid the size of Texas or some nonsense, some huge asteroid that was going to pass by Earth. Now, it wasn't going to come anywhere. It wasn't going to, quote, come anywhere near Earth.
Right, but in an astronomical sense, it was in the neighborhood.
It was closer than the orbit of the moon. So, like, and it just whizzed past us. And I remember being legitimately frightened that day until, like, because I knew it was going to pass that day, and until it was gone, like, I was physically upset because I knew what could happen if it actually hit the planet. And there was this little thought in my head, like, if that was slated to hit the planet, no one's going to survive anywhere regardless of what they do. So would anyone tell us about it?
Okay, I want to say that we're in this interesting, if you don't believe in God and you look at humanity from, like, you know, that Earth was this like celestial body that single-celled organisms evolved into human beings. We're in this weird period on astronomical timescale where we as human beings are smart enough to anticipate these things and think about it, but we've not yet developed to the point where we can do something about it, which is either stop it, detect it early enough that we can stop it, or get out of its way.
So, actually,
and in the future, some point, we may reach the level of development where we can do one or both of those things.
So, actually, this is interesting if we want to go on a tangent for a couple seconds, because the technology to stop an asteroid from hitting the Earth, that exists. It is actually super easy. If you can detect an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth early enough, all you have to do is paint one side of it white, and solar wind will push it out of Earth's orbit as long as you catch it early enough.
Okay, Josh, paint the state of Texas white.
Ben, if it was a world-killing asteroid, you don't think we could pool our resources for something like that?
If it's far enough away that we still had the time to do it, how could we get it? We're not there yet.
I know, this is what I'm saying. Like, the bigger problem is
we have to catch it on its first orbit around, not the second one.
That's what I'm saying. Let me land my plane. It's the detection, because as they said in the perfect movie Armageddon, directed by Michael Bay, which is awful. He said, like, how come we didn't detect this earlier? Well, sir, currently
Bite your tongue, sir.
No, sir, our funding allows us to scan about 2% of the sky, and forgive my French, but it's a big-ass sky. And so detecting is the number one. And two, like you said, actually getting to the thing is, we don't have that technology right now.
Yeah, we don't.
Again,
so
we need to get off of this planet, Ben.
Right now, we're just capable of imagining it, but not to do anything about it. If it happened, we would just be as hapless as the dinosaurs.
Oh, I'm sure there's some generals in your office that would have a couple of solutions that they would propose to the president.
Well, there may be some underground bunkers with a few provisions where people plan to try to hide out for a little while, but I just don't see that going very well.
Listen, sir, I've spent my entire career babysitting 2,000 nuclear weapons, and if this isn't the time to use it, I don't know what is.
Yeah, we don't have any ways to get nuclear weapons into space and where they would be any type of effective.
Oh, that's a software patch at most.
Yeah, we would try. Nothing. Sorry. This one, while unlikely, is probable and very problematic for a few more 100 years.
But by definition, it's astronomically improbable.
Right. Said the dinosaurs. Okay, what's next?
Oh, the dinosaur. All right, never mind. Your dinosaur comment set me off for a second, but I'll let it go. All right, the next one is everybody's favorite, the zombie apocalypse. Everybody imagines, like, zombies are an excellent analogy for everybody else goes crazy but you. And it just becomes this, like, all the movies kind of see that. And it's like,
I like that.
I'm the last person that makes any sense, and I am allowed to just slaughter all of these crazy people en masse. What would I do with my existence? That's what these zombie movies really are. An exploration into the solo act.
I like it. I like that as a philosophical distillation of the dilemma. Like, what if it really isn't about someone actually has a problem with them, but just me versus everyone?
It's me versus everyone, and we've removed the moral impediment not to kill.
Okay. Yeah, because that is very much central to any zombie movie. I've never seen a zombie movie where somebody's like, whoa, what are you doing there?
Yeah,
he has rights too. That's a person.
That used to be a person. Yeah, nobody cares. That's a zombie. He's trying to literally eat you. So Ben, what do you do? Like, how do you feel about the zombie apocalypse? Do you read any? Have you read any zombie books? Do you consume any zombie media?
Yeah, doesn't everyone? I don't know, Josh. I think I would roll over pretty fast to the zombie apocalypse. I'd just join them.
Just join the ranks. It's not worth living anymore.
Just join them.
So here is
that's my solution to this problem.
All right. While we're talking about the zombie apocalypse, I'm going to propose to you the next fiction book we need to read is World War Z. That book is phenomenal in ways that I can't describe, and it's
okay. Alicia also has highly praised that book, so I will concur with your determination there. And listeners, be advised that one's coming up on our reading list, and we'll review it at some point in the future.
Yes. Okay, so for the zombie apocalypse, first of all, like, we're assuming all infrastructure breaks down because that's what happens. And I live in Phoenix, Arizona, which means I'm going to die of thirst within a week, tops. Like, there's just there's no getting around that.
You require infrastructure to exist.
Yes, I'm in a place where if infrastructure collapses, then my life is unsustainable. But in these scenarios, I always imagine being ultra tenacious, and because I'm not doing what you're doing. I'm not going to lay down. I can't. I'm going to take the three people I care the most about, which is the people that are sleeping in the building right now, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep them alive for as long as possible. And in every scenario, I always see myself doing, like, being the guy that's holding the door or the guy that's stopping them while my family gets away. Like, I'm always dying, but I always hope that it's in a way that's giving them 5 more minutes of life.
I love the way that you reduce this dilemma. It's blowing my mind. I'm just going crazy right now in my mind, thinking about the idea of it's us versus them, and I've removed the morality of killing other people. That's it. That's every zombie movie ever.
Yeah. Huh. You're just stuck on that one, aren't you?
Yeah, that's why I would join the Horde, because I wouldn't be so easy to just cast away my regard for other life.
I mean, I have there's always those plans. I'd go to like a Home Depot or something with a lot of physical resources. You need to build some barriers. You need some tools. You need things to get stuff done. There it is. It's all in this building. Lock it down. Make it a fort. Collect as many people as you can. Try to build some kind of a small community structure and figure out resources from there.
All right. Well, people, if you want to, depending on which side you want to take in the zombie apocalypse, you know whether to follow Josh or follow me.
And look,
what's next?
What's next? Massive EMP or a solar flare. Do you remember the Tom Cruise movie that was really terrible? That was War of the Worlds.
Yes.
Yeah, there was some kind of EMP or a solar flare or something, and it wiped out technology. Cell phones stopped working. Anything that was digital basically just crapped out. And this includes certain electronic parts in cars. So mostly transportation industry was shut down too.
I'm putting this one in the same category as asteroid. Like it's mathematically and scientifically possible.
It is like there is scientific evidence that if you took a large yield nuclear weapon, detonated it in the high upper atmosphere, like there wouldn't be radioactive fallout, but the EMP could wipe out a large chunk of infrastructure for parts of the planet. So that is all speculative. Like I don't know anything about it. I've read things on the internet, so that's where I'm getting that from. Ben is going to be silent, and we'll leave him there with that.
Well, there's one thing I want to say about this, and that is I think the opposite of what I said about the asteroid, about how we're in a period where we can anticipate this, but we can't yet do anything about it. I think we're in the opposite right now for this one, which is we're still in a time period where we're close enough to like the industrial age that before it had become the technology age and the information age, where there's still people and knowledge and infrastructure in place that isn't dependent on the existence of past technology. And so if like today all of our technology pooped out, there's enough people around that remember how to like, I don't know, train a horse to pull a plow that we could still grow food.
So this is really two different, this is a forking road of apocalypses. There's the one where all infrastructure is wiped out for some set amount of time until we get it up and running again. And then there's the apocalypse where all technology is lost forever and we are back to horse and cart like you're talking about.
Well, I think you could hit the reset button hard enough that you couldn't get the machine started again.
Okay. In that
you know what I mean?
That case, we are back to pre-industrial age everything at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, and I think we have not yet reached the point where there's no one around that remembers the old way of doing things that we would have trouble transitioning back. But at some point in the future, we're going to cross that line.
I agree with you. I think we have crossed the line more than you think because cities can't exist. Like the transition from agrarian culture to an urban culture, like one farmer is producing now today with technology what it would take, hundreds of farmers to produce back in the Middle Ages.
You're right. There would be a big reset because we would no longer be able to produce as much food.
Oh, there would be a vast majority of the population
mass starvation
would die, and then everyone else would go back to sustenance farming like it was before.
Right. Yeah.
Or eating the dog food cans in the Walmart until those were gone.
I don't know how to solve this one. Like if it happens, it happens. But if it did,
this is investment in infrastructure and EMP shielding and Faraday cages. This is hardening against these kinds of things. Come on, Ben, this is a solvable problem.
I don't know. you think we could harden against electromagnetic pulse or a solar flare on a broad enough scale to be inoculated against this threat? I
think we could reimagine technology that is resistant enough to those kinds of because the solar flare, the EMP is going to cause unwanted electrical impulses inside of digital systems. That's what's going to fry them. I think we can create digital systems that are tolerant, that have higher tolerances, that could take spikes like that. Okay. All right. Well, then it's not as bad as I said. Maybe the vulnerability isn't like I characterize it then. Well, right now the vulnerability is terrible because no technology is hardened against it for reasons because it's astronomically improbable. Okay, next. Alien invasion a la Independence Day. Like the giant hostile, malevolent force here to take over the world and suck it of its resources. And not only is it a hostile and a malevolent force, but it is a force that has the technology of interstellar travel, which means that their technology is literally light years beyond ours, to the point where they would see us as like animals or insects that are on this planet. They wouldn't even consider our well-being as they strip this planet of its resources. Yeah, I don't. So you mentioned War of the Worlds and now Independence Day, and in both of those, there's some Deus Ex Machina where we win in the end. But I don't. If malevolent aliens showed up at the planet, we're just screwed. Absolutely screwed. There's no other way to say that. Like the best we can do is hope that they have some desire to communicate with us and are willing to consider us. Yeah. Otherwise, they're just going to strip the planet of its metals. We're utterly at their mercy. Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, what resources does this planet have that you couldn't get easier and faster and in more abundance from an asteroid? So it's none. So I guess in that respect, this
idea that they would come here. If they did, it would be to actually communicate with the living beings rather than get the resources.
Or they're super tribal and like, oh, crap, you people are developing technology. No, we're going to put a stop to that right now. Kind of the same.
They got some kind of Thanos complex.
Or just kind of the way that you exterminate ants in your kitchen. It's like, hey, we want all of these asteroids, and in maybe 600 years, you people would be ready to mine asteroids, and we're just gonna nip this in the bud.
I kind of get that, but everything's so far apart in the universe, and there's so much of it. Like, why would they come here?
Oh, are we going to talk about the Fermi paradox now?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the Fermi...
I'll add it to the Bad at Magic dictionary that you can find on our website, badatmagic.live.
So
the glossary.
I'm going to boil this down as quickly as I can. The Fermi paradox is this mathematician figured out that because the universe is so old, even if you take super conservative estimates as to the number of life hospitable planets in the galaxy and life actually developing on those planets, that the entire galaxy should have been colonized by some form of intelligent life over 2 billion years ago. So where are all the freaking aliens?
Is that the same as like Stephen Hawking's time travel theory? Like, if it were ever to be invented, it would already have been invented at some point in the future, and we'd know about it, so it must never be invented?
No, this is all he does is he talks about the rate at which stars form and the rate at which there are planets that are comfortable for life around those stars and the rate at which life develops on those planets. It takes into account all these assumptions. And even, like I said, with the most conservative numbers possible, because the universe is the galaxy is so old, it should have been colonized by now, long ago. So the idea there's resolutions to the Fermi paradox of varying degrees of that maybe we are truly unique in the universe for some weird reason. Or maybe there is something that stops life from getting outside of their own solar system that we just haven't dealt with yet. Or maybe the galaxy is teeming with aliens and they're just disguising their presence from us like Star Trek. We're not going to interfere.
That's a fun one.
We're not going to interfere. Like, yeah, what if someday we go to the moon and they're like, oh, great, good job, fellas. Actually, there's tons of aliens out there and you finally made it to the step where we're going to let you into our club.
Yeah. That's the premise of Star Trek First Contact, which I love.
So anyway, the Fermi paradox says that there should be a ton of aliens, but we don't see them right now. And there's a bunch of explanations about why that is, but that doesn't change the fact that there could be a ton of aliens out there.
Okay. Send me a link to that video and I'll put it in the show notes because I'm interested in that.
Okay.
And exploring that idea.
All right.
All right, I added a couple here beyond what you said, so I'll introduce them, okay? How about Rise of the Machines? We've kind of hinted at this in the past. You know, that we, as humanity, are on the verge of giving birth to artificial intelligence and things like 3D printers where, you know, we could create an inanimate object that could create itself. So now we have intelligence and the ability to reproduce, and you put them together, and perhaps we as humanity could give birth to something new that hasn't existed before, that's self-aware and isn't us.
Okay. And so there's varying degrees of artificial intelligence. We're assuming for the apocalyptic scenario that it's malevolent to humans.
Or becomes that way, or has the potential to become that way.
Well, again, this turns into those branching paths where there is people talking about the idea where AI is like we give it a goal and it pursues that goal to our detriment, like without realizing that it's hurting us. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's a high and low of this scenario. At the high end, it's like Terminator scenario where they form laser weapons and they crawl the planet hunting us or turning us into batteries, a la the Matrix. And then at the low end of the scenario, it's just like they like reset your alarm clock so that you sleep in.
So, have you read iRobot, like the book iRobot?
Yeah, we've covered this before. I tried to read it, and I couldn't make it all the way through, but I read about half of it.
Okay, there is one scenario where these two guys put together, like, the smartest robot up to that point, and the robot doesn't believe them. He's like, I don't believe you created me. I am smarter than you. I am more resilient than you. I use my resources far more efficiently than you do. I don't have to sleep. Like, everything about me is better, and it does not stand logically that an inferior thing can create a superior thing.
Yeah.
So, that's how I feel about the AI and robots. Like, if we gave birth to AI that was that advanced and complex, it would immediately start thinking of us as its pets at worst. At best, it would be completely. It wouldn't even worry about us. Like, it wouldn't even care because we would have no control over it at that point.
But you talk about humanity needing to get off the earth, but maybe someday we'll be extinct, and all that remains is the fact that we were the biological organisms that gave birth to artificial intelligence.
You are talking about like the entire plot of the Mass Effect series of video games, and
really?
I'm loving it. It's great. It's the idea that left unchecked, biological life will inevitably create synthetic life, and synthetic life will then wipe out biological life. It's
kind of like the Borg in Star Trek too.
Yeah, like I was saying, if the synthetic life is so much superior to the organic life, of course it will supplant us at some point. We're going to die off in our stupid meat sacks while their perpetual, immortal metal skeletons wander the universe forever. That's just how it's going to be. But I don't think.
So we're here at a turning point where we're imagining the inception of all this kind of thing, and we have the ability to either decide not to do it or to try to put controls into place to protect ourselves from it.
This is a fault of humans, is we're associating intelligence with emotions. Like, machines by definition won't have any emotions because emotions are things that are biological in nature.
But you're also saying we can't do it. But maybe we can.
I think artificial intelligence. I think we absolutely can and will at some point develop artificial intelligence.
But maybe we'll also create it that synthesizes emotions, so that we wouldn't be wrong to impart this on.
That would be wrong of us to give AI emotions. Like to.
I know.
It's like,
but we have the capability of doing that now.
I want to make my toast. I want my toaster to be capable of feeling sadness, because when I scold it for not getting my toast perfect, I want it to feel bad. That's if we do that, then we deserve to be wiped out by the AI robots.
I heard this, and I think it was the Freakonomics podcast, and they were talking about the idea that what if our technology is already self-aware and it's like screaming silently, and we're just abusing it.
Is that why whenever my wife's computer freaks out and she can't get it to work, I come and I pet it for a second and then it just does everything it's supposed to do?
Yes, that's
it's
why.
Because I appreciate it more and it knows that.
Yeah. All right, so I had one more scenario. There was a film that came out a few years ago, and it doesn't fit into any of these other categories. And it was called The Children of Men. Did you see it?
I saw Children of Men, and this is also well documented in the show The Handmaid's Tale, which is very popular.
Okay, yes, same kind of thing. So at some point in the future, the ability of humanity to reproduce comes under threat. Now, in Children of Men, it was like simultaneously all around the world, all at once, everyone stopped being able to reproduce. That's kind of high end, like mass sterility. Low end is just like declining birth rate. Whether it's voluntary or involuntary, something goes wrong, people can't reproduce, and our population starts to decline.
I think the low end of that, our population naturally declining to nothing, I think that's a very real threat, because at some point we're going to create a virtual reality world that's so much better than the real world that I'm never going to
go. You get all the biological enjoyment of reproduction without any of the inconvenience.
Yeah. That's basically where I was going with that.
Yeah, our DNA has developed to the point where we find it physically enjoyable to conduct the act of reproduction, but what if that just completely had zero effect as to actually reproducing?
Yes. There would still be weird fringe cults like, the entire LDS community that would keep it going just for tradition's sake, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's the real scenario. In this low birth rate idea where it's not mass sterility, you guys win. That's it. Just through sheer population takeover.
Yeah,
that's an ideal scenario.
I get it. That was kind of also the main concept of idiocracy.
Yes,
just that the dumb ones got to take over because they were the ones who kept reproducing.
So on the low end, declining birth rates, we kind of agree that that's probably not a real problem. Like, people will perpetuate. There's always going to be some people that want to have children, and it will steady out somewhere.
It's kind of a problem. I was in Europe and I saw this interesting thing happening that I wasn't aware of, where basically governments were highly incentivized to try to coerce their populations to increase to at least the replacement birth rate, because their government and their way of life was dependent upon having a perpetuation of the current population for the purpose of funding social programs and taxation and housing values and employment and everything.
So what you saw there was the first steps of people taking corrective action to that issue. And as the population continued to decrease, those steps would be more and more drastic.
This is a theme of what we've said today, that as the problems start to pop up, humans are resourceful. They'll think of something.
Exactly. Now,
Like I think the Danish government was creating like birth lotteries. Like, all right, get pregnant. If you have a baby 9 months from now, then you win a prize or something. Or here's your gift bag. Or here's $1,000 to go on a romantic honeymoon with your romantic partner. Whatever. Just trying to get people to have more babies.
I've never wanted so much to be Danish than right now. The government telling me, "Hey, go get busy." That sounds great.
Yeah.
I want to live in that country now. All right, no, but all right, so we agree that that's probably not a real thing that's going to end the species. But mass sterility somehow. This I would honestly the Children of Men movie. I feel like that's more of an act of God than even like the Yellowstone caldera exploding, because there is nothing that could explain that happening universally across all of humanity at the same time.
Right. Oh, but it made for such a juicy concept for a film. Like, what if humanity was all still here and there was nothing else wrong, but there's nothing to live for?
Well, I mean, that was the kind of the spiel of the film, where there's like the government was handing out suicide kits, like you'd call and like get poison sent to you in the mail because, oh, we get it, you just want to end it, it's fine. Oh, humanity's breaking down anyway. I don't think it would be that bad, honestly. Like, because of people like me, where like philosophically, the one side of me that cares about the perpetuation of the species would be devastated, but the part of me that cares about me and my family, all right, yeah, whatever. I mean, like, I'm going to be dead before this is a problem anyway, so who cares?
I don't know. It just seems so profound to me. Just nothing matters anymore. You think that, but then there's things that you do in life that contribute to that. Like all of your clients as an accountant are doing things like saving for the future, planning for their child's college, planning for retirement. It all would just tumble like a house of dominoes.
Okay.
House of cards.
Okay, no, actually that brings... Okay, no. You've swayed me. Because what that does is it makes everybody look at the little hamster wheel that we're all currently running on. Because the assumption is that...
Like, why are we doing this?
Running on the wheel keeps the wheel spinning. But if there's no point to spinning the wheel anymore, and we all agree on that, then the whole system... You're right. The whole system comes to a screeching halt.
It just breaks down.
Huh. Well, I'm going to have to watch that movie again, because now I have a more profound understanding and appreciation for that. Yeah. I think... I don't know. I can see myself doing everything from just doing whatever I want. That's what I would do, whatever I wanted. It would be Mad Max. At one point, I think I would be in a reinforced car on the freeway just killing people for fun.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
If the Children of Men scenario happens, God help the fast food worker that tells me to pull forward.
That's a great thing to conclude with. I want to tie a bow on this. So we spent a lot of time talking about scenarios from highly likely and we're already on the track to supernatural, utterly improbable, to mathematically virtually impossible, but still, within the realm of the possible, to utterly ridiculous and not even possible at all. But I want to say, in all of this, I have an element of faith in my belief in God, and that I think even if any of this stuff happens, everything's going to be okay. And so I don't worry about it a lot.
So I have a faith that after I'm dead, my consciousness will cease to exist and I will be incapable of worry. So I don't worry about it, because if I'm dead, I have nothing to worry about.
All right. So we both have a reason to Hakuna Matata on this.
Kind of, yeah. To an extent. There are some things that we like, that philosophical part of my brain that was worried about humanity. I bought an electric car not because I wanted to feel good about myself. Actually, I did. That's a little piece of it. But because that is one thing that I can do within my scope of control to help a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, you heard it here, folks, listening to the Bad at Magic podcast. We just saved the world. You're welcome.
Yes, please. If you feel like donating to us fixing the planet, we have several ways that you can do that. If you love listening to what we've done, we just crossed the 100-hour mark. This is a huge milestone, and thank you for being here with us for that.
Yeah, wow.
If you want to listen, are we doing this part now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, if you want to listen to us forever, please share us with a friend. Like, I feel like that's the least you can do. If you enjoy listening to what we talk about, maybe your friends will too. If you want us to be able to reach more people, think about taking your phone out of your pocket and giving us a good rating on the podcast player of your choice. It's crazy the visibility we get on that. And if you want me and Ben to be around to be able to save the world, no, strike that.
And to go fly on the Halcyon Star
That's
Cruiser.
right. Forget the world. The world is done. We saved it already. Like, the world can suck eggs. But if you want Ben and I to give like all of the bonus content about going on the Halcyon Star Cruiser and just gushing about how amazing it would be, consider becoming a patron on our Patreon.
And if something we said today piqued your interest, you were shouting out loud to your podcast player, and you want to join in on the discussion, come to reddit.r/baditmagic, and you can join in the discussion there in an anonymous way. Or if you want your face to be seen, you want to belong, you can go to our Facebook page and comment there, see the photos. You can go on the show notes to see the links that we played. Lots of ways to engage with us on social media and become part of the discussion. And next time, I have been dying to tell a story about the time I took on the superintendent of schools in my local school district. So I'll tell you that story next time. And until then, try to be a little less bad at magic.